Welcome, everyone. It's Dr. Lindner. In this next series, we're going to be talking about the endocrine system. And you'll see way up here at the top where we talk about the comparison of the neural system and the endocrine system. Now, we haven't really spoken much of the neural system, but you'll be getting to it soon in anatomy and physiology. But when we did do a brief introduction to the neural system in the very, very beginning of the course, where we introduced the brain and the spinal cord as the CNS, and then all the nerves outside of that would be the PNS, the peripheral neural system. CNS was central neural system. And we know that the neural system is the very, very first system that develops embryologically, and they call it the master system. But the neural system is not the only system that controls and coordinates functions of the human body. So does the endocrine system. So both the neural system and the endocrine system, they're going to act together to coordinate all of the functions of the human body. They both use these chemical messengers. The neural system uses neurotransmitters, whereas the endocrine system is going to be using hormones. Both of them, whether they be neurotransmitters or hormones, they have a starting point and they have an ending point. The ending point is usually on some sort of receptor, which is typically found on cells, or we call them target cells, right? Whether they be hormones or they be neurotransmitters, they're going to bind to receptors on the target cell, which is really its final destination. Now, I mentioned endocrine. Well, we also have exocrine glands. So we have endocrine, we have exocrine, and we even have some glands that are considered to be mixed, which means it's a combo of both endocrine and exocrine. So exocrine glands are going to secrete their products into ducts. All right. So think of your sweat glands, right? When you perspire, you have a sweat gland and you know where they are because we've covered tissue, we covered skin. So we've covered the sudiferous glands or the sweat gland, and it moves up a sweat duct and eventually to the epithelial surface of the body in the epidermis, top of the skin, where you can see your perspiration. Sebaceous glands, these are oil glands, same thing. It's going to move from its gland up its ductwork to outside of the body. Now, mucus glands and digestive glands, these two are exocrine, but they're not going to be releasing their byproducts to the skin or to the surface of the skin where you can see it, but it will be releasing it to the epithelial surface because if we think of where we find epithelium, it's in any type of tubular system. So the digestive tract is epithelium. So when the stomach has digestive glands and it secretes enzymes, or the mucus glands secrete mucus, it's secreting it whether it be inside the mouth, inside the stomach, inside the intestines. Even though it's inside the body, in those lumens, it's still considered epithelium, the epithelial surface. Now, mixed glands have endocrine and exocrine function. Now, exocrine releases it into ducts, whereas endocrine is going to release it into the blood supply. And those hormones are going to be moved throughout the blood to reach their target cells to influence function. Some that are mixed, I think of the pancreas. The pancreas has exocrine function because the pancreas releases digestive enzymes into the intestines. But the pancreas is also endocrine because it releases insulin and glucagon to regulate blood sugar. So, exocrine on the left-hand side is different than endocrine on the right-hand side. So, exocrine, these cells, these are exocrine cells, they can secrete their product. It's going to move up a duct into the top of the epithelial surface. So, these look like cuboidal cells, right? So this could be the intestines, this could be the stomach, or this could be the top of the skin. Endocrine, we have endocrine cells, and these endocrine cells are going to release their hormones. The hormones are going to travel through the blood supply to hit their target cell. So endocrine glands, these secrete hormones. Endocrine glands do not have ducts. Instead, they secrete their hormones directly into this interstitial fluid that surrounds them. And the hormones diffuse into the bloodstream through capillaries. And eventually they'll be carried to their target cell. So some endocrine glands are the pituitary gland, or the thyroid gland, or the parathyroid gland, or the adrenal gland, or the pineal gland. These are endocrine. Now, certain organs and tissues that are not part of the endocrine system, they too can secrete hormones because they have secreting cells. There are secreting cells that are found in the hypothalamus, which is in the brain, the thymus, near the sternum, your pancreas, your ovaries, testes, right? So when we think of ovaries and testes, we're thinking of the reproductive system. So, although we learn about the ovaries and testes when we cover the reproductive tract, it's also covered when we do endocrine system because the ovaries and testes are going to release hormones like testosterone and estrogen. Well, the kidneys, these are get covered when we do the urinary system, but the kidneys release hormones as well. The stomach is part of the digestive system or digestive tract, but it has secretory cells. So we can talk about it when we discuss endocrine. And the same goes for the liver, the small intestine, even the skin. The skin, we briefly discussed when we talked about tissues that the UV rays, the ultraviolet rays, come down, they hit the subcutaneous cholesterol on the skin in order to make vitamin D, which is a hormone. Even the heart is part of the cardiovascular system, but it too has secretory cells that make hormones. Fat cells, adipose tissue, fat cells, they produce a chemical messenger that are called cytokines. And cytokines, especially from fat cells, they are pro-inflammatory. They are pro-inflammatory, which means that the more fat or the more fat cells an individual has, the more inflammation they're going to have. So when we think of inflammatory diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, when we think of diabetes, cancer, MS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, fibromyalgia, osteoporosis, these are all pro-inflammatory diseases or inflammatory diseases that are made worse with excessive fat cells. Fat and fat cells make any inflammatory condition worse because they release cytokines, which are inflammatory chemical messengers. Even the placenta also releases hormones that can influence the function for the woman. So let's take a break here. When we come back, we'll get into the main endocrine organs, which we see in purple, and then we'll talk about some of the accessory ones that have secretory cells.